Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right, welcome everybody. Tonight, I wanted to show you something pretty quick. I'm sorry for my podcast audience. You don't get to see my amazing work. So I'm going to get off the screen for just a second. And I'm going to show you my AI new intro video. I'm pretty excited. I don't know where to put it yet, But all right, I'm going to take myself off.
Join us as we explore the prize inside, looking at holistic health and extraordinary human potential.
Hi there.
Hi there.
The Prize Inside, a podcast dedicated to holistic living and unlocking your human potential.
Isn't that hilarious? Hopefully some of you enjoyed that. That was my first go at the old AI stuff. Finally figured out how all that worked. Just wanted to make a cool intro video. At some point, I will get it right. But it was really fun learning because I'm constantly trying to learn new things. Like that's just the way I go. I believe the AI stuff, when done right, could be it could be a value or an asset. It's going to be here. So why not do something about it? So anyway, so that's my first AI shot. Tonight, though, is about freeing your wrists, natural pathways to carpal tunnel healing. Now, tonight, we're going to go through there's going to be a lot of slides that I did in a previous one in my Rumble channel. So we've done a couple wrist pain ones. This will be our second one on the wrist. I want to really kind of double in there because a lot of times information comes out that's new that maybe we didn't go over in that little hour. So I want to go through each joint of the body as well. Like as we go, I want to, hopefully if you got wrist pain, carpal tunnel issues, one of the things that really, really is troubling is because once people start having issues with their wrists, when they start having wrist pain, a lot of times it's almost like immediately our brains go to, oh man, I'm going to have carpal tunnel surgery. And that's farthest from the truth. The biggest thing is like understanding that it's a chronic condition. And when we have a chronic kind of situation going, we really want to make sure we have the emphasis on time, because remember, the innate intelligence of our body is perfect. It needs time to heal. We need to give it the opportunity to do that healing. And a lot of times, sometimes when carpal tunnel comes, because of the chronicity, because it's so much trauma over time, over and over again, that a lot of people, don't get as many great benefits. So hopefully I can teach some things that shockingly aren't there, which is nuts. This is one reason why we keep bringing it up, because there's so many things. I'll have a patient come in and their wrist, we'll fix something on them and we'll talk about, wrist pain. And I'll show them like 3 or 4 things that they had no idea was there. And one of the reasons is because a lot of times we stay focused in on the actual wrist itself. Well, the problem is a lot of the condition is somewhere else. And so we'll talk about that. So without further ado, though, if you like it, I'm up to 72 subscribers on Rumble. I'm pretty pumped. I got some people on YouTube. I haven't had a ton of watches or anything on that. I'm up to 17 people on the old YouTube. I've never pushed the YouTube, but I'm pretty excited about it. Both of those I recommend because you can go watch old videos. Like, so if we go over something you didn't remember or you want to go back to it, those are really, really good areas to do that. Okay. So that's why I push those. The Rumble channel is the Prize Inside on Rumble. Okay. So, and here is the link for the chat area. Here we go. Okay, so there's that one. And then our YouTube channel is the Prize Inside You, a chiropractor's journey. So look that up. That is a fantastic place to watch the videos. All right. And then we have my favorite is podcasting. So we have over 5,000. I think we're at 5,000 downloads now on the podcast aspect of things. And so a lot of times that's where I like people, but the video gives me more alternatives, like on a night like tonight, where I can like literally show you anatomy and try to explain it to my podcast audience. But the podcast is where I started, and I love that part. So here is our podcast link. And then our last thing I always recommend is if you like to get notifications on when we go, like a lot of times I do, it's called tribe1.substack.com. So if you put in tribe1.substack.com, that will get you to our email list. Or this email list is something that I can tell you when we're going on for live or those things. Next Sunday is going to be a recording. So I want you guys to all be ready for that, because we're going to have, like for as holiday stuff comes, I want to make sure we're consistent, but the way you might get that early is get on that tribe1.substack.com. So that's pretty cool. All right. So without further ado, I will not keep you long in tonight's episode of Natural Pathways for Carpal Tunnel Healing. Lots of good options here, folks. Lots of good options. The biggest thing is we need to walk through what the anatomy is first. We need to understand that anatomy as we go. Okay. So what we're going to go over tonight is the anatomy of the wrist, and then look at things to improve your wrist issues. So in the sense of activities, things you can do yourself, things that you can get treatment for. There's quite a few of those. Nutritional solutions, which is a big part of the reason some of this stuff happens. And of course, the last thing is mindset. So remember, we always go over thoughts, toxins, and the traumas on any kind of condition, just to make sure it opens and expands your mindset of that my wrist hurts. It must be the wrist. There's so many other pieces to this. And that's what I want to explain tonight. And hopefully, as I word it, it'll come out well enough to where you understand, there's a lot going on there. Okay. So let's talk about the anatomy of the wrist. So the anatomy of the wrist, one of the biggest things is, if you count them with me, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then there's a few more, 14. There's over 14 bones. And I cannot, let me see. Yes. Okay. So there's over 14 bones in your wrist. Okay. So with all these different bones, there are like a lot. So times that by several, and you'll have all the joints of your wrist. Each of these joints fits together like what I like to say, like a Lego block set. You're building a brick wall with your kids of Legos. Okay. So those Legos fit like that, where you have little blocks and they kind of set in there. The difference is that our body allow to get the right wrist motion and the right wrist movement. Those little Lego blocks have some give to them. sometimes you get a lot of times where we get function of one of those wrist joint, those bones in there, one of the several 14 bones in there, then you have those kind of issues start popping up. So what I wanted to do too, oh man, sorry, I'm going to put in, I want to show you a video of this motion. Okay. So we're going to go after, so here is a good, let's see. Yeah, so let's use this guy. Okay. Okay. Push pause, and then I'll screen share real quick. Share my screen. So look at the motion of your hand. Okay, so here is the motion of the carpal bones. See how they move and they have to flex. Okay, this is even a flat. See that? Hopefully you guys are seeing that. See how they have to motion? And these are little tiny bones that are in your wrist. Okay. Look at how that works. So all of these bones have to fit perfectly. Now we're going to do, okay, so we're going to go to the next one. So the other thing I wanted to show you is once we get here, okay, once we get to this aspect of the hand, we have to understand that all of those motions are super important. One of the things that happens in our world is that we don't put enough emphasis on proper good motion of all the fingers, toes, everything, right? And so if it's out of sight, out of mind, everybody says to stretch. One of my favorite things is as we get old, you take your one arm and stretch it across this way, and one arm stretch it across that way. Shake your arms a little bit, and there's your stretching routine. Really, the best thing to do is to go after each and every single joint of your body. And the wrist and the hand is no exception. The wrist and the hand have so many joints, and we want to make sure each of those joints get some kind of motion. And we're going to go through that. I think that would be my favorite thing we do tonight. And I'm hoping with my lack of video experience, if I had like 17 angles, I'm going to show you a few different ones and try to explain them as well. So remember that as the joints of the motion, the joints of the wrist are super important. Okay. If those joints aren't functioning right, the innate intelligence of your wrist doesn't pick up the right signals, therefore building up scar tissue, getting injuries in those areas. Okay. All right. So carpal tunnel. So carpal tunnel is essentially this tunnel that allows all the nervous system, the nerves, the tendons, and everything else to ride up into the palm of your hand, essentially. Okay. And then they go up in through this tunnel that's make a tendinous sheath, like a tube. I kind of think of like, you're putting wires into your house. You need that little casing that goes around or a hole in there. You need to create a hole in your house, and that hole is where you guide the wires. Now you have a nice let's say you have a nice protector thing when you do a hole around your house. And so that would be essentially the tendons of the carpal tunnel. The problem is that tendon's constantly moving. So if I showed you back where all of the wrist joints move, all those little tiny bones are constantly moving, what has to happen with the wrist bones itself, the tendons of the arm or the tendons of the wrist? The tendons of the wrist essentially start to create wear and tear, right, on there because I want constant motion. Okay. And so the carpal tunnel creates a tunnel. It creates a bridge-like tunnel that allows all of those tendons, all of those nerve paths to get through there. Because something people don't talk about is we talk about, the nerve pain that comes with it. One of the biggest things that would really show you how your carpal tunnel is doing is your grip strength. It has nothing to do with the nerve pain. If you get to the nerve pain part, that tendon and that tunnel is kind of beat up. Okay. It's beat up beyond where it could be if we would have taken care of it. Okay. So just remember that as we go. So let's show you this just because sometimes this happens. Some people think they have carpal tunnel if they have hand numbness. And I'm going to say that's not really the case. Just understanding that there's a lot of places that this could come from. Okay. So your nerves originate from your neck. Okay. So the nerves of your hand originate from the lower portion of your neck. As it goes, it has to travel through your shoulder, then your elbow, and then to your hand. A very classic part of carpal tunnel is that carpal tunnel syndrome, anyway. So you'll hear me say this. My buddy years ago in chiropractic school, everybody has a carpal tunnel. Do you have carpal tunnel syndrome? Carpal tunnel syndrome is where there's actually pain or numbness to it. So carpal tunnel syndrome is where your whole hand gets numb, not one side or the other. And you can see on this diagram that we have several areas that have different nerves go to different areas. Okay. So I want to show you that real quick on here. Let's say it's your thumb, your index finger, and half of your middle finger that become irritated. That's not necessarily carpal tunnel. Still could have an issue there. It could have a wrist issue. But a lot of times, if that is all that's numb on you, then it's typically going to be your neck area. So it's going to be your neck vertebrae that is the problem. Okay. So that numbness in that hand or those fingers, that's where that would come from. And so we really want to watch that, as we go. If it's on the other side, so like part of your middle finger, your pinky finger, and your ring finger, then that's called what they call the C7 nerve root, right? C6 is the side of your thumb, and C7 is the side of your pinky and middle and ring finger. Excuse me, sorry. So with that said, that kind of helps you indicate, hey, maybe my carpal tunnel symptoms are coming from somewhere else. And we're going to talk about how getting a full everything done, figure a full evaluation of all things will really help you out in understanding how all this works. Okay. All right. So here's where we talk. So here is where these come from. The cervical area is where the nerves originate. The nerves actually originate from your brain and spinal cord, right? They have to come out somewhere. So the body's innate intelligence sends those through your C5, C6, C7, T1, all of those areas. And then they shoot down through the shoulder, supplying things as we go, right? All the way down to your fingers. One of the biggest things that we see as chiropractic is that people get diagnosed early with carpal tunnel. In finding out later, they had a neck injury, they had a shoulder injury, they had an elbow injury that caused a lack of communication with the innate intelligence of the human body to create these things from happening. So there's the rub, right? So one of the biggest problems that you can get is the C6, C7, T1, all those areas can have other pathway problems all the way to your carpal tunnel. And so my biggest thing tonight is to make sure that anybody that tells you carpal tunnel, it's not a death sentence that you have to have a surgery. Oh, and by the way, usually the surgery on that, very easy surgery for them to do. The problem is it's one of the least effective surgeries there is. Why? It's because of if we don't fix the mechanics, if we don't fix the free flowing pieces of the joint of any of them, wherever the causation is, it could be in the wrist, it could be in the elbow, it could be in the shoulder, it could be in the neck. Wherever the issue is where the problem needs to be addressed first. And because we don't do that, we say, hey, it's carpal tunnel, and we just jump right into surgery. or, we do PT on the wrist the entire time, which kind of cracks me up sometimes. That's how it works, though. Then we end up with carpal tunnel surgery that's ineffective, where if we would take our time understanding where it's coming from, and just the mechanics of the whole thing, we would be much, much better off. Okay. So with that, here's another one. Our body creates something you'll never hear from anywhere else. There are 3 arches of your hand. Think about that. The arches of your foot. We've gone over these. There's 3 arches of your foot. You have the arch that you know about in your foot. The opposite side has a smaller arch, but it's there. And then we have arch between your toes. Very similar arch happens with your hand. You have the arch that you can kind of see, the carpal tunnel, and it goes beyond the carpal tunnel and into the pinky. You have one across your knuckles, basically on the inside, that creates one. And then you have another arch that runs kind of and creates that nice pitting thing. So you have a cup motion. So you have 3 different arches that could potentially be happening in your hand. Now, the one we notice and the one that causes the most issues is where the tunnel is that allows the tendons and the nerves to go through, right? So that's true. But the problem is like, if all of these arches, what happens to an arch if it's not perfect? Think of architecture. Think of architecture in a bridge. Would you want to go over a bridge that the arch is not, all the pieces were not together exactly where they need to go? Would you want to do that? Or would you want to make sure that every piece that makes up that arch is working properly at all times? You would want that. You would want the arch to work very well before you go over a bridge that had arches, okay? So that's one of the things. That's why there's always a bone called or a stone or anything called the keystone of the arch. And that's one major reason why that's occurring. Okay. So remember that. Our job is to get the best arches of our hand we can with every single day, right? So that's the thing. That's what 1% Tribe's all about. Okay. All right. So let's get into some videos. This will be kind of fun. All right. But let me show you this first. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to do this first. I want to show you. So you saw the mechanics of the wrist, okay, in that short little video I showed. Here's the mechanics of the elbow and the wrist, okay? Watch this. So as you're watching, look at how your wrist has motion when your elbow is engaged. And this is with the radius, right? So the radius is the thing that turns the bone. Now you see how far away that radius is, and it's still affecting the motion of your wrist, okay? So one of the major misses in medical that I see is that we don't evaluate the motion of the elbow joint in either what they call the radius or the ulna joint, which then also can lead you to missed situation in the wrist joint that would cause pressure to be on the carpal tunnel. Okay, so that should be kind of interesting. So hopefully you like that. All right, so now let's go to, let me stop sharing there for a minute, and then we'll go into let's see what we're going to do about it. I got a couple new ones and a couple old ones. So we're going to go to, all right. Okay, so our first one I want to start with is going to be self-massage. Okay, so self-massage on the wrist and forearm. Okay, so most of the time you're going to want to look at the forearm area as the key indicators. Now, before, like, I don't know, we'll get into the muscle bellies and all those kind of things, but most of the muscle that you're ever going to have to affect in here is a lot of times it originates at the elbow. That's where the Popeye forearms and all those kind of things are. So we really want to make sure, hey, Mom, how are you? Mom's here. It's good to hear. That is awesome. Hopefully you get some forearm work in tonight, Mom. That's what we're going after. So, but yeah, so as we go into this wrist presentation, you're going to see some of these different massages you can do on your own. A lot of these ones we have are going to show, a massage therapist working on it. But remember, you can actually go from one side, use your arm on one side and go into the opposite side. Okay. So a lot of times that's what you'll want to do. So let's go into that. Share the screen again. Okay. So let's do the self-hand massage first. So let's start there.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside.
Okay. So as we're going, it looks so basic, but this is so important. Understanding where all those tendons and all those knots can occur, and maybe using something like a magnesium cream or like a massage cream can really make the difference. And they're using their own hand to make the different massage areas. It's a big deal, guys, especially the people that use their hands on all the time. Okay. So they're using really good high massage techniques where you don't even have to be this good at it. But you can see it's super important. Hand strength, remember, is one of the major issues in aging. And it's one of the major things that if you keep that hand strength going, your age is, they literally say it's an anti-aging process. Okay. So that's what that looks like. All right. So that's a hand massage. Let's go back to, so here's the deep tissue forearm stuff. I really like this as well. Now, they're going to use a massage therapist, but these are things that you can do with your own thumb to actually get after getting into massage. And I like using ones that you can get really in there, because look at where he's working. This guy is working in the process of where the forearms actually, that's where the muscles are. Okay. So by doing this kind of massage or kind of work on yourself, it can make a huge difference. And I know people want to use the thumpers and all those things. They can be good. But yeah, so these are some good ones. So if you can look and see, so basically for my podcast audience, we're using like massage oils or something that you can get in there with your actual thumb. So you can take your thumb to your opposite forearm, go where the big muscle bellies, like where you'd say Popeye is your forearm. Okay. And you're kind of rubbing in there and getting some of those muscle knots and trigger points out of there. And so I'll give you a couple tricks on that. So when you're looking for your own trigger points, okay, so when you're looking for your own trigger points on yourself, a lot of times you'll have these areas that you'll feel, and they'll feel different in other muscle areas than the others, right? So because of that, you'll want to go in there, and the ones that are a little more tender, those are the ones you want to stick around a little bit longer. A word of wisdom: these thumper guns that they have, they're very, very good in a lot of situations. A lot of times they're overkill, though. And one of the things that happens is when you don't use your own hands, right? We've taken laziness to the next level where we just don't want to use any portion of our own body to actually do this stuff. But use your own hands to find those muscle knots in the muscle belly in the arms yourself. You will literally feel the blood flow, the oxygen flow, the nerve flow going up into your hands. Okay. So I recommend strongly a lot of times in getting into forearm massaging up into the hand. Okay. It was so critical to me because of chiropractic stuff. So as I'm adjusting people, I do a lot of physical adjusting. And one time I ended up with, and even my intern kid, who's got his own clinic in Galesburg now, Dr. Thane, could attest to it, that I had this trigger point or a trigger finger that I couldn't adjust without this trigger finger going off. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to do any surgeries on that. That's crazy. So I started doing hand self-massage quite a bit, like each and every night. But what I did was, especially when you're in a painful condition like carpal tunnel, you'll want to do it just enough to like make sure you have a good feel of, I've made it angry. Now I need to get away from it and relax away. Okay. So like when you're doing these forearm things, you get into those trigger points. Don't go so hard that you hurt the next day. Your body has this ability to heal if we don't beat on it to ask it to heal more, if that makes sense. So a lot of times you'll want to get into whatever knot, and that goes for trigger point. What I was noticing was I was going into this area. I really needed to work to get this trigger point out of there. I was rubbing the scar tissue away, similar to this technique we have called gua sha that's a little more intense, but you get in and then I was able to get away. Now, when I first started, I kept pushing way too hard and actually almost making it worse each time. And that's the nature. That's why I really like people when they start using their own hands, they can get a good feel. It's just like anything. It's like innate intelligence wants you to do well, with the different movements you're doing. Okay. And so this is one of those. All right. So I just wanted to show you that one as a massage technique. And then let me see. We did that one. Okay. And so we'll get into the last thing. Oh, I want to get into this guy. Okay. So this guy is going to show you the big thing tonight that I want to have an understanding of the movement patterns you need. Okay. So as the movement patterns are, and my video is not going to do a great job. Every day, every morning before I see any patient that comes in, I do an entire workout from my toes all the way up. It takes me about probably 6 minutes, maybe at max, to go through every single joint of the human body. And one that I really make sure I get in there is my hand ones. Okay. So my hand and my neck, cervical stuff, because a lot of times we think we take those for granted, but these are things that we really want to make sure we're doing on an everyday basis. Right now, the problem is we get up out of bed and we start things. All of our joints aren't ready for that. We went from stagnant laying in a bed to now we're up and moving and doing all these things, where before, if we ever did that, we would warm up. I'd say like every sport I ever was in, the most annoying part was the amount of warm-ups you had to do before you played a sport. But now we go to work every single day, and not one time do you work out or you warm up. You know what I mean? Now, if you're working at a factory or something, they started doing a lot of these things, which is really, really smart. But and those people actually notice a major difference in how they feel and how their alertness happens. Why aren't we doing that? Being a retired person, why aren't we doing that? All those things. Make sure the moment you get out of bed, I'm moving every single joint. It's not a hard to ask, but it's just hard to remember to do. Okay. So that's where this comes in. Okay. So now let's look at this guy is fantastic. I want you should all get onto this guy's channel and watch him on YouTube. He does phenomenal videos. It is called, I think it's called, his is called Arthritis UK. Okay. So it's called Arthritis UK. Jump on this video. This guy is really, really good. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the beginning point of this carpal tunnel in mind. Okay. So I want you to kind of walk through all of these stretches that we're about to do. Oh, what'd I do? Okay, here we go. All right, we'll go to, okay. So we're going to start with the neck area.
Begin by setting our posture. I want you to be nice and tall through the neck, chest proud, shoulders relaxed behind you. We're going to begin with the head tilt. So let's take our ear across to the shoulder, where we'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently return back to the center. And again to the opposite side now, where we hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back to the center.
Okay, so on that one, we want to repeat that about 4 times. Okay, so the biggest thing, the biggest kicker will always be understanding if you have pain with any of these, you don't go through them because we don't want to punch through the pain part. Okay. Everyday routines aren't about no pain, no gain. Everyday routines are about improving my motion every single day a little bit, because by the end of the year, I want you to be able to take your head and bend it nice on either side, nice, and hold. And sometimes you'll get actually pain with those things, right? So we're taking, for my podcast audience, he was taking his ear and just going to his shoulder and holding it for about 5 seconds. And you'll want to repeat that like 4 to 5 times. Some of you will actually have issues where that won't be a thing. Most of my elder population, anybody that has a little arthritis, and typically above 60, we get so much neck arthritis, it's almost unheard of. And one of the reasons I keep pushing on carpal tunnel and shoulders and everything else is because that's where my retirement is having issues at. Yes, we have hips. Yes, we have knees, but the neck and the shoulders are the one getting people. And so one of the reasons is because we have lack of motion in there. So with that said, let's go back to Arthritis UK. Get back on that. All right. Okay.
So we're going to find that good posture once again. Keep our shoulder.
Now we're going to do neck rotations. Okay, so neck rotations. And we'll get to where I'm talking about it soon.
The square will gently turn to one side as best we can for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gently back to the center. Cross to the opposite side. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gently back to the center.
So in a lot of those, some of you won't be able to do it very well, okay? But that's the key. Then the other key to these ones in your neck. Now, why are we talking about this in carpal tunnel? Because it's critical to start where the nerve starts, okay? Start where the nerve starts so we have a better understanding. And so with the neck rotations, you really want to make sure you're feeling, is my motion the same from one side to the other? Okay. So now we're going to go to this one. This is one of my favorites. We're going to skip a little bit of his. I would still recommend highly going to Arthritis UK and getting me a subscribe.
Sticking with the shoulders for this one, let's go into our arm stretch. So we begin by setting a posture. Nice.
Actually, I'm sorry. Let's go back to the shoulder one so that we can start there. Because remember, the wrist is attached to the shoulder as well. So I want to give you a couple shoulder ones that we want to do as well.
Let's get our shoulders moving now with the arm lift. So we begin this movement by putting our hands behind our heads, and we're going to squeeze our elbows back for 5 seconds before locking them behind our backs and squeezing our elbows back for 5 seconds. Now, if you find it uncomfortable getting into this, you can always put your hands on your shoulders or use a stick behind you. So let's give it a go. Hands behind the head and squeeze those elbows back for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Behind your back and squeeze those elbows back for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again to the head.
Okay, so those are fantastic. So behind your head, like you're giving somebody a full Nelson, but then you're pulling and squeezing your shoulder blade together. Okay, and holding it for 5 seconds. And then you're bringing your whole body and arms and kind of wrapping around the lower part and then pulling that back to open up your chest cavity. What you're doing too is opening up that pathway for those carpal, those tunnels, those nerves to work properly. Okay. All right. So let me get into, so there's a lot of shoulder ones and we'll get into some of those. I don't want to, we're going to go into a couple more. I don't
For
want
this next exercise, we can sit down or you can remain standing. I'm going to sit down here.
For this.
So start with a good posture, arms by your side. I'm going to work 2 hands at once, but you can just work 1 at a time if you like. So let's begin with these elbow bends and gently pull the hands up to the shoulders and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gently straighten the elbows as best we can. And let's take them back up. Hold there for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the wrist flex.
Okay. So that last one, very simple, but we got to make sure the elbows are getting there. So we want to give some kind of exercise to the motion of our elbows. Okay. So now we can start getting into the carpal tunnel stuff. Or
so for this one, you can be sat down as I am, or you can remain standing. We're going to start by getting our elbows at a 90-degree angle. So you can use the support of an arm from the sofa, or you can use a table, or you can even do like I'm doing and just rest it by your side. Let's begin with that wrist flex position. Let's gently take the hand down and add a little bit of overpressure. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and come back to the center. Let's extend the wrist and overpressure for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently coming down again.
Good job. So that one's a nice one. So what he is doing on my podcast is he's just taking his elbow, make it at 90 degrees. So shoulders at 90, taking your wrist into flexion. So it's looking down, and then he's putting a little bit of pressure to kind of stretch out that tunnel that way to push towards your body. And then he puts your hand in extension, like you're doing a high five, and puts a little pressure to kind of get that stretching of the carpal tunnel out of there. Okay. Then we got to do
the finger tendon glide. So for this exercise, we're going to go through 3 different movements. They consist of the hook fist, the full fist, and the straight finger fist.
After I watched this video, this is one of my favorites that he does that I've implemented in myself. That has helped tremendously with a lot of finger things. So these are the keys, not necessarily rubbing just on the carpal tunnel where you think it hurts or where the problem is.
I'm going to work 2 hands at once, but you can work 1 at a time if you like. So let's give it a go. Let's go from the hook fist and gently open up, full fist and gently open up, and straight finger fist, gently open up. And again, hook fist.
Okay. So what he's doing is he's using a small fist like a ninja fist, like a half fist where it's like a full, like a regular punching boxer fist, and then you collapse that whole thing. Okay, so it's 3 different ones: karate, ninja, regular fist, and then you go into that full thing. Now, I like adding cross over your wrist, cross over your thumb. Okay, so you go boom, 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 cross. So just 1, 2, 3, 3 different fists, right? The karate fist, the regular fist, and over corrected, and then your thumb across. So that's what I like to add to that. So with that, I think that is all I'm going to have. Yeah, so that's about all I'm going to have for different ones like that. But remember the massages. So, and remember this, there's a lot of times where, let's say somebody has a wrist injury that's pretty significant. Okay, so it's significant enough to where you want some help with it. There is a ton of things in chiropractic where we do adjusting the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, the neck, all of those things. Sometimes the low back. I don't know where the condition is. Remember, the innate intelligence tells us where the problem is, right? The big thing is like understanding that whole flow and understanding what kind of help naturally before we do something major as surgery. Okay. So there's this thing called gua sha. Gua sha is a technique that you're essentially rubbing scar tissue that is formed in a more aggressive motion. It's not a massage necessarily, it hurts. But the idea is that if you are on the location of where the scar tissue is that's bad, it will start to break up. And then while it reheals, your body's able to reheal it in a better framework. Okay, so that's where gua sha comes in. Massage is fantastic for getting the knots out of muscle bellies. Laser. So a cold laser allows the mitochondria of the cells to really start to do some healing processes. So a lot of times you can get this laser done and those cells heal at a rapid pace, especially when you start doing treatments on things. Some gua sha, some getting a chiropractic adjustment, all of those things, the laser will help stimulate it forward. Infrared's another one that I'd love to have conversations about. That's another at-home thing that you there's infrared therapy lights now all the time. Infrared's a lot different than cold laser, even though they kind of feel similar. Infrared you can have at your home, all these things. Cold laser is a little more intensity. So it's more in a setting where you have to have it done. But infrared, you can do a lot of at-home different ones. Just make sure you get a really good unit if you do it. But one of the things that happens is like after a massage or those kind of things, that would actually help stimulate the healing process in there. Okay. That's right. Oh, red light. Yes. So red light is that, right? Roma Cafe, welcome. So infrared is red light therapy, essentially. Red light therapy is great. My recommendation, though, is always red light is a healing therapy with frequency. Same with cold laser, any of those. You must do some kind of treatment to get stimulation. Okay, so let's say I have carpal tunnel in my wrist. I want to do something to the carpal tunnel, like do a hand massage on my wrist. Let's say you came to our office and we did, got the gua sha done. I adjusted your wrist. That stimulation kickstarts that red light therapy to really help the situation. Many times we just put the red light on with the same situation that's occurred, and it doesn't get that result that people are looking for. And that's one reason why, everybody's like, it's okay. But red lights, it's phenomenal. It really, really is. That's why I went to get the cold laser, because I wanted the one level above it, just because how instantaneous it is. The problem is if you don't physically move some stuff around, especially in scar tissue, it has a hard time doing the magic that we want it to do. Okay. So red light and infrared, very, very similar. Okay. One thing I want to bring up, because we did this in the last episode, if you want to watch more of this, there's another episode of Carpal Tunnel on my Rumble channel or YouTube. But one of the things that you'll want to watch on that one is about wrist strength. So we go through that quite a bit, where there's this thing called dead man's hangs, doing planks and getting so good at planks that you could actually use your fingertips to do it. Those are things that you have to think about when you're talking about wrist strength. We have to get to that point. Wrist strength is an anti-aging miracle cure. Okay, so they've linked wrist strength and weakness into aging faster. So the stronger we get those wrists, the better off we'll do. Okay, so hopefully that gave you guys some good stuff to try tonight. I hope so, because now we're going into the nutritional side of things. So let's say we got these nerve problems, these wrist pain issues, these carpal tunnel, whatever. Okay. Let's talk about nutrition issues that can cause the wrist pain. Sometimes we can have diabetic issues, right? So if our blood sugar is off, we can have neuropathy, but typically they call it in your feet. But you can also have this neuropathy type situation in your wrists as well. Okay. So it's not just your feet. It's just that's the most common. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure that our liver and our sugar is really good as well. If we're having that kind of issue, let's talk about some natural ways to get that done. Or look at berberine. Like 2 Sundays ago, I did a whole talk on berberine. So go back and look at that and see how to take something like that. Great blood sugar regulator. Look at your liver and gallbladder. Look at your liver and gallbladder function. A lot of times with your hands and wrists, that is a major area where the hands and the wrists can have issues. There are several vitamins that can be depleted that cause pain and numbness in your hands. These are the major ones: B1, B6, and B12. Okay. B6, you can take as peroxidyl 5-phosphate, but you also need zinc in there. So remember, a nice B complex with some zinc could get that nervous system and those nerves healing if the carpal tunnel nerve pain is actually the problem. Copper is the one that not a lot of people hear about. I love the magnesium cream for the pain in the muscles and all those kind of things. But copper is something that you can take as a supplement or a cream that many times has a link to hand pain or wrist issues. Okay. And then vitamin D3. Vitamin D3, huge nerve stimulant. All of us love that. It's always fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about some herbal remedies. I love doing this. You all know that. That can help with as we're healing from these things. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is what they call a neuroprotectant, but it's actually called an adaptogen. An adaptogen is something that is an herb that has the ability to basically improve or cause homeostasis in all the symptoms, all the organs of the body. That's why adaptogens are so important. Ashwagandha is one, astragalus is one, those kind of things. Black cohosh is a fantastic herb for pain relief. White willow is the same. White willow is, Tylenol in the herbal form. Butterbur. Butterbur is very not talked about enough, but butterbur is an herb, and it's a very good nerve analgesic. It'll help with a lot of, problems at the site, right? chamomile, which is crazy, but a lot of your carpal tunnel is coming from muscle knotting, muscle knotting over time and overuse of your wrists and hands. Maybe chamomile, as a cream or, those kind of things could help aid you in muscle relaxation. And so gallbladder and liver, a lot of times dandelion tea is one of your best. And if you want to go look and get crazy about gallbladder and liver, there's tons of liver and gallbladder herbs that are really, really good. You go look up the video that I did on choleretics and cholagogues. That'll get you. And those some other ones in those gallbladder and liver, not just dandelion tea, is ginger, coriander, and artichoke leaf. So a lot of different options for what can we do other than surgery. So surgery, if you got to have it, you got to have it, I guess. But if it was me, I may try some of this stuff. All right. So let's get on to the last portion. Y'all know, we talk all the time on conditions. Conditions are what? The body's innate. It's our body's ease is being sickness is just the body not expressing its true born innate intelligence. We've gone through some traumas, right? So we can fix that through trauma and physical movement. We have some toxins. All right. Maybe we had a nutritional or a vitamin depletion that caused us to have these things. So now let's talk about the thoughts that could be there and the mantra that will get you to where we want to go. All right. So now what are the thoughts connected? So for hand pain specifically, this is from, what's her name? Louise Hay. Sorry. Louise Hay from Hay House. She wrote a book called, it's years ago, but it has so many pieces. But Louise Hay is the author, and she goes through the subconscious program or thoughts that could be connected to the physical manifestations or the physical injury. So here's one. For hand pain specifically, she suggests it's related to issues with holding on too tightly or not handling experiences well. The emotional reason centers around difficulty in grasping, letting go, or managing life situations with ease. Think of clutching, gripping, or resisting flow. Okay, so that's cool that you know that. I don't care if you know that, because we want to get rid of that subconscious program. It's always cool to say, oh, that's what it is. I got all these problems. No, forget about that, because this is the part I want you to screenshot. If you're going to screenshot something today, this is the mantra I want you to do. Your affirmation. Who cares how I got there? Okay. I choose to handle all my experiences with love, joy, and ease. So here we go. I choose to handle all of my experiences with love, joy, and ease. And I'm telling you right now, folks, sometimes this is a game changer for longevity in lack of wrist pain. Okay. So once you figure it out, maybe this is the kicker. Okay. So with that said, what are we going to do for our 1% tribe tonight? Start making some lifestyle changes. Let's start moving those wrists, understanding how that goes, doing some little hand massage, some self-massage on your wrists and elbows and all those kind of things. Checking it out. If you need more help, that's where chiropractic comes in. Massage. We have all kinds of options. Cold laser, red light therapy, or infrared, those kind of things. Self-evaluate. Feel those forearms. Are they knotty? You feel the tightness in there? Remember B1, B6, B12. Get a nice B complex going. Maybe that's it. Try some different herbs for the situation. Okay. So those are all different things you can do. And just remember, as we go, this is a journey. Surgery is a pretty big step. It can be one of the biggest steps. Why not try stuff that prepares you? And if surgery's got to be the thing, okay, it does. But that doesn't mean you didn't give it everything you had. And guess what happens? Guess what happens if you did do all these things? The cells of your body improved. We had huge strides in all these things. Your muscle knots are gone. Your B complex depletion's gone. Your vitamin depletion's gone. That's pretty cool. You have a better mindset on grasping things. Is anything I'm telling you going to hurt you by trying it versus just jumping into a surgery that you might be able to do something about? So with that said, tonight you guys rock. Remember, next week I'll probably not be doing it. You'll have a little recording, so I apologize. Thank you, Roma Fat Cafe, for coming in tonight. I love it. And Mom, of course, that was awesome. But I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys for always doing the 1% Tribe. Subscribe to the Rumble channel, the YouTube. Tribe1 at Substack. Tribe1.substack.com for the mailing list. Really enjoyed doing these. Hopefully next week I'll get you a really good one. And we'll go from there. So with that said, you guys have a great night. Take it easy.